Welcome to Scripps News Tonight. I'm Christian Bryant in Washington, D.C. We start with two major political stories surrounding former President Donald Trump and the criminal cases against him. One surrounds accusations of impropriety by a Georgia prosecutor. The other, Trump's claims he should have immunity to do whatever he wants as president and never face charges. National correspondent James Packard is on top of these developments, and he joins us now. James, let's start in Georgia, where the former president is being charged with running a criminal conspiracy to overturn his 2020 election defeat. Now there are questions over Fani Willis, the prosecutor heading that sweeping case. What are we finding out today?
Yeah, CB, good evening to you. We found out in a court filing that allegedly Nathan Wade, one of the special prosecutors working under Fani Willis on this case in Georgia, has bought airline tickets for himself and DA Willis in October 2022 and April 2023. This may not seem like an issue, but think about the dynamics here. Nathan Wade, the special prosecutor, is making money because he's working on this case hired by Fani Willis. And if Fani Willis herself is financially benefiting from that arrangement, getting airline tickets, for instance, on his dime, which of course came from the taxpayers of Fulton County, Georgia, that may be an issue. Now, this came to light as a result of a divorce proceeding between Nathan Wade and his estranged wife. Scripps News, by the way, is part of a media coalition that has asked for these court files to be unsealed so that we can get more details on this. Fani Willis herself has now been asked to be deposed in this case. She has not yet responded to that. She did speak about the allegations here broadly and suggested that Nathan Wade's estranged wife is trying to harass her team. She did not specifically address an allegation, Christian, that she and Nathan Wade are involved in a romantic relationship.
Yeah, James, I mean, this has really snowballed over the last week or so I'm sure we'll hear more in the coming days, weeks, and so on and so forth. In federal court, the former president is trying to get another case tied to his efforts to stay in power tossed out. He's claiming he should have presidential immunity from all criminal charges. What's the latest in that case?
Yeah, this is related to Special Counsel Jack Smith's case against him and his efforts to overturn the 2020 election. His lawyers have argued that presidents can't be distracted by the threat of prosecution for the acts that they carry out in their official capacity while they're in office. But they are arguing that this extends beyond a president's time in office. The judges so far have seemed not to like that argument, but of course we're waiting on an official decision to come down. There was some anticipation that it might come down as early as this evening. Of course, we're still waiting on that. We may be headed into the weekend without an official decision on this. If the judges rule against Donald Trump, he would take it likely to the full circuit. Then ultimately it may land in front of the Supreme Court. That's a lot of litigation to go through with a trial on these charges set for early March. And of course, in the middle of a presidential election year, huge implications for what it could mean for former President Trump's viability as a candidate on the general election ballot come this November. As I said, CB, we were thinking we would maybe get a decision on that this evening. We're still standing by for that, but huge implications potentially in that case.
Yeah, I had been watching my phone and all of my other threads with anticipation to see if it would come down this evening. Nothing as of yet. James Packard, though, keeping us updated. Many thanks, James. To help us break down all the legal chaos surrounding the former president and what's at play here when it comes to full presidential immunity is Mitchell Epner, former federal prosecutor and attorney, joining us live from New York. Mitchell, it's really good to have you. Trump's legal team has argued that the former president was acting in his official capacity when he tried to overturn the 2020 election results. An appeals court judge said that it's paradoxical to say that a president's constitution duties allow them to violate the law. How strong is this argument from the defense?
I don't know anybody in serious legal circles who thinks this is a strong argument, but it has had the effect of delaying the trial. And earlier this week, by rulings that Judge Chutkan made about other things, it's pretty clear that the early March trial date may be gone.
Yeah. I want to back up here. What are the limits of presidential immunity, and how might a ruling in either direction really impact what this means for future presidents? I mean, this is an essential question that's a part of this. The limits of presidential immunity, what are they?
So, Christian, that's a great question. With regard to civil matters, presidential immunity is basically complete. Anything that falls within his official duties, he simply can't be sued for. That's something the Supreme Court decided about 50 years ago. With regard to criminal cases, it's never literally been tried because no former president has ever been indicted before. But everybody in the legal community for the last 250 years has proceeded on the basis that if a president commits crimes while they're in office, they can be put on trial after they leave office.
There was in a hypothetical that one of former President Trump's attorneys brought up after this appeals court hearing, where he said, the prosecution conceded that if former President Obama had ordered a drone strike, he should be allowed immunity for that drone strike. Again, this was just a hypothetical. I mean, what did you make of that argument, that reasoning that something like this happening during a presidency, a president should be granted immunity for let's say this hypothetical situation?
So what was more important was that during the actual oral argument, one of the three judges asked Trump's attorney, Mr. Sauer, are you saying that if President Trump or a president ordered SEAL Team 6 to assassinate his political rival, that he could not be put on trial for that unless he was first impeached and then removed by the Senate? And Trump's attorney had to admit, yes, that was his position, which would literally mean that if you had 35 senators on your side, you could kill everybody who ran against you. That is not something that has appeal for the courts of the United States.
Really interesting stuff here. Trump, for his part, said on Truth Social, a president of the United States must have full immunity, without which it would be impossible for him or her to properly function. Even events that cross the line must fall under total immunity. What does this tell us about Trump's mindset on the issue? And is this an admission of sorts?
I take it that Donald Trump is scared that if this goes badly for him, the bottom, the top is he returns to the White House. The bottom is he gets tried, he gets convicted, and he dies in jail. And I think he's very scared of the latter.
Before we let you go, are there any historical analogs here? What does history tell us about how this issue might be decided?
What history tells us is that everybody previous to Donald Trump who has ever held the presidency has had some sense of history, propriety, and decorum that has caused them to peel back when they get close to the line. And Donald Trump has doubled down at every opportunity, and he is the one who has created this crisis.
As we said before, we are still awaiting that appeals court decision on this presidential immunity issue. But in the meantime, Mitchell Epner, thank you so much for being with us here on Scripps News tonight. We appreciate your time and your expertise on this matter.
Thank you for having me.
We're also following a developing story out of Uvalde, Texas. Local media there say a special grand jury has been convened to investigate the police response to the 2022 mass shooting at Robb Elementary School. The report comes after the U.S. Justice Department released a scathing report they called the law enforcement response to the shooting a series of cascading failures, saying officers prioritized their own safety over saving lives and had no urgency even as children and teachers lay dying or crying out for help in the classrooms. Family members tell Scripps News they want accountability.
This is something that we're going to have to, live with for the rest of our lives, and sometimes, when we have, meetings or stuff comes up like this around the shooting, it kind of is a little bit of traumatizing. but we always have to remember what our ultimate goal is, and that's for, the accountability and for other kids not to go through this again.
According to the Uvalde Leader News, this grand jury will decide whether officers will face criminal charges over their response. Coming up, Sports Illustrated's publisher announced mass layoffs. Most of the staff is expected to get the axe. Is this the end for the 70-year icon of sports journalism? We'll explore. And up next, they traveled through jungles and deserts only to be bused to cities with below zero temperatures. How migrants are making it through the Arctic chill.